free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you to fit their mold.
Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Two Tone Talk podcast, live here today. Some of you may be listening on SoundCloud, some of you may be listening on Spotify, somewhere else, but many of you I know are watching and listening along on YouTube, and I appreciate that. If you haven't, please go subscribe. If you're listening and maybe you haven't subscribed yet, please go subscribe to the Two Tone Talk podcast on YouTube. Go through there and like some videos and do some of that cool stuff. Also, go follow the Two Tone Talk podcast on Twitter, where there's always tons of nonsense going on over there. This is the Two Tone Talk podcast, where we talk about everything going on in the NFL. Primarily, though, we talk about these Tennessee Titans as this interesting off-season continues. The draft is a month away, and who knows? Who knows what awaits the draft. I thought it was a foregone conclusion, but now the way things are going, I think it may be up in the air. So we're going to talk about the draft a little bit, talk about some draft prospects, going to talk about the quarterback situation that is ongoing, and at the end of today's episode, going to do something a little fun, going to rank, along with some help from you guys, the top 10 Titans games, and we're going to be doing that kind of stuff in the weeks ahead with these kind of top 10 countdowns as well. But before I get started today, I want to give a special shout out. Got this message yesterday on Instagram letting me know that there's a listener out there by the name of Chris, and Chris is turning 11 years old tomorrow as of this recording on March the 28th. He's a big fan of the Tennessee Titans and a big fan of the Two Tone Talk podcast. And I just want to give a shout out to Chris. Wherever you're listening, thank you for listening. Happy birthday, my friend. Tighten up. Chris' dad kind of reached out to me asking for a birthday shout out. And apparently they went from Florida, where they live, all the way to Nashville on Christmas Eve this past year to watch the Titans play the Texans. And the Titans, of course, lost because it was one of the last 7 games of the year, and they lost all of those games. They lost to the Texans, but apparently it was still a great time. There's nothing like going to live football, especially when it's a team you love. So happy birthday, Chris. 11 years old tomorrow. Happy birthday. Tighten up, and thank you so much for listening to and supporting the podcast. And speaking of the podcast, today is episode 24. Let's get it going. Let's talk about the draft, which is coming up in a month. Now, up until the last few weeks, it was a foregone conclusion that at pick 11, the Titans were probably absolutely going to go offensive line. And they very well still may. They've made some acquisitions in free agency. As Rand Carthon said in a press conference or press interview type thing that he just did yesterday, he kind of said that, we're looking for guys with untapped potential. We're giving these guys an opportunity that maybe have not gotten an opportunity elsewhere. We're going to give them an opportunity to come in here and prove it. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. Talked about it last week. I think the Titans are just trying to be as competitive as they can possibly be to get ready to have more cap space next offseason. But there have been acquisitions made on the offensive line. The offensive line room, while still not good, is much more passable now than it was a few weeks ago. With that being said, they may very well still go offensive lineman at pick 11. They very well may. Or, honestly, right now, I'm considering we might need to just go wide receiver at pick number 11. I mean, I was already concerned. Now I'm getting very concerned about the wide receiver room for the Tennessee Titans. I'm worried. Okay, I'm worried. What are we doing? What? I am watching free agent after free agent after free agent go to other teams for not too much money. Some of them, they're getting paid probably too much, but, you see some of these guys going to other teams for next to nothing, and it's like, you mean to tell me the Titans didn't need that guy? Now, before you guys jump down my throat, I understand this free agency class for wide receivers was not great. Not great. But some of these guys were definitely good enough to need to be on the Titans should have reached out. And honestly, I know there have been people on Twitter who have said, the Titans are not very appealing to wide receivers right now because the Titans don't even know what their quarterback situation is going to be this season. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. But I understand that, but this wide receiver thing's getting out of hand. I mean, you're looking at one of the worst wide receiving groups in the NFL as it stands right now. So I'm looking at this draft and I'm saying, okay, got some Quentin Johnson, TCU, Jordan Addison from USC, Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, Zay Flowers, Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. I'm starting to look at some. Now, obviously, some of these guys you're not going to take at pick 11. That'd be way too high. But some of these guys, I think Quentin Johnson from TCU is the top overall wide receiver prospect. And what I like about him is he's got more size. The thing that you see across the NFL, these wide receivers, it's about size. These are some big old dudes. You look at a guy like DK Metcalf, you look at a guy like A.J. Brown. These are big, heavy wide receivers. But, as Mike Vrabel said after the season ended, the Titans need more speed. And I agree with him. We do. We need speed. Okay. Desperately. And, I'm looking at some of these wide receivers. I'm like, man, it's going to be mighty hard not. It's the place of biggest need. I think it's even more than the offensive line now. Not that the offensive line still needs a heck of a lot of help. Don't get me wrong. Offensive line needs help still. But I think even the offensive line room right now is looking more competent than the wide receivers. We've got to do something about it. I don't know. I thought by now we would have signed some type of a veteran wide receiver. And then that brings in the conversation about DeAndre Hopkins. And the Titans are still, kind of having their name attached to him. I talked about this a little bit last week. I don't know, guys. I'm having so many flashbacks. Julio Jones. Do I have to name them? Julio Jones, Randy Moss, Andre Johnson, Eric Decker. The Titans are like the kings of bringing in wide receivers who used to be awesome. Once they're washed, and they come in and it's just a dud. It's happened at least 4 times. I just named the big 4: Julio, Randy Moss, Andre Johnson, Eric Decker. Now, I personally don't think Eric Decker's name even deserves to be listed alongside those guys. But still, he counts as a wide receiver that, is like, oh man, it's Eric Decker. Eric Decker's coming to the Titans. This could be a big deal. And then no, nothing. And I just feel like DeAndre Hopkins, although DeAndre Hopkins is not as old as you might think he is. DeAndre Hopkins, he's been in the league, for a while, so you think like, oh, that guy's, he's washed. No, the thing is, he's still a young guy. The problem is the injuries, especially over the last 2 seasons. He's been very hurt. Really, since he got to Arizona, he has dealt with injuries very similar to Julio Jones. Just always in and out of the lineup, always banged up, tweaked something here, pulled something there. And I just don't know, man. I don't know. Unless you can get him for just an unbelievably reasonable price, low round draft picks or something, you can't give up a lot of stuff for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins because you've done it before and it sent you backwards. I'm very iffy on trading for DeAndre Hopkins because of the injuries. Not because of the age, but because of the injuries and always being hurt. The last thing that any team needs, but especially the Tennessee Titans, the last thing they need is a guy who's going to come in and be hurt all the time. And I honestly think if you're Mike Vrabel, that's more than enough reason to look at Rand Carthon and say, listen, we can go get this DeAndre Hopkins if you want to, but look at our injury history over these last 2 years. Is this really the kind of guy we want to bring in? We already got guys in and out of the lineup constantly. Is this really like what we want to do here? I don't know. My gut tells me it's not a good idea. Now, if they announce today that they have traded for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm going to try and get excited about it now. I know obviously he played in Houston all those years, so I know DeAndre Hopkins is a baller when healthy, but that's the key, when healthy. How many times have we said that about guys related to that? Man, Julio really contributes when healthy. 1 out of every 7 weeks when he's available. Man, David Long is one of our best defensive players when healthy. Man, Taylor Lewan can really contribute on the offensive line when healthy. That's a big asterisk when healthy. And their injury history, I think there's just bad mojo all around bringing in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Now, with that being said, here's the thing, no matter who you draft, let's say they draft a wide receiver at number 11. Who knows? Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, one of these guys. Let's say they just go wide receiver at 11. Okay, that's great. But you've already got Treylon Burks, who's still young. You've got Kyle Phillips, who's especially young because he just completed his rookie year, but he barely played. I think he played like 3 games. So he's pretty much still a rookie in my eyes. Racey McMath. Come on, guys. Nick Westbrook-Ikine is a wide receiver 4 at best. So we're really just relying on youth. We are relying on these young guys to just be studs. And I guess if you just draft enough young guys, one of them's got to hit eventually. And I think there's a lot of upside with Treylon Burks. I still think Treylon can be amazing, but, he dealt with injuries last year too. Well, everybody did. But even if the Titans go wide receiver, I don't like the idea of going into the season with just all young guys. I feel like you need that veteran presence. You need somebody who can kind of steer the ship in that wide receiver room, and it can't just be a bunch of young guys who are trying to find their way. There's got to be a veteran presence. And I don't know who it's going to be at this point. Don't tell me about Odell. Odell wants too much money right now, and I said it before, I'll say it again. Odell does not strike me as a Mike Vrabel kind of guy. I can't imagine Odell on a team coached by Mike Vrabel. I can't imagine. A lot of people have mentioned Corey Davis, former Titan, been with the Jets a couple of years, and now there's rumors that could the Titans go get Corey Davis back. No, I will say this. Initially, I was totally against that. Initially, when that rumor got out about a month ago or what, I was like, you know what? No, we don't need to go get Corey Davis. But now, it's to the point where I'm like, you better go get him. Who else is there? And the reason I don't think it's going to happen is because I'm not going to say Corey Davis ended on bad terms with the Titans, but he definitely didn't end on great terms either. I mean, I'm not going to say he ended on as bad of terms as A.J. Brown, but he's still, he wanted to stay. They didn't want to pay him. Do we want to pay anybody? I mean, do we want to pay any wide receivers? In today's NFL, how stupid is it that the Titans are like, no, we don't want to pay a wide receiver? John Robinson should be held on a court of law over what he did with A.J. Brown. Anyway, but yeah, back to sometimes that John Robinson thing with A.J. Brown, it just comes up in my mind, and it's like I just have to say something. I have to yell about it. Corey Davis, though, I mean, I don't know. Corey Davis, he's been hurt in New York. Everybody's been hurt. Corey Davis has been hurt, and I mean, the production he's given the Jets is not great, but look at the quarterback situation he's had to deal with there. That hadn't been ideal either. As a matter of fact, I think the best game that he's had in his 2-year span with the Jets was against the Titans last season. But yeah, I mean, the Titans, yes, I'm beginning to think they need to draft wide receiver at 11, but even then, we need a veteran presence. We need somebody that knows the ropes in that wide receiver room. And right now, we ain't got it. And so I'm concerned about that. I don't know if they've got something in the works for a trade or something, but I can't believe we've done nothing except re-sign Nick Westbrook-Akine at the wide receiver position. Can't believe it. Also, in terms of the draft, I mean, I think we've kind of passed the point of trading up for a quarterback. I just don't think it's going to happen. I talked about it last week. Carolina jumping up there to number 1, Houston being at number 2. I think that's Stroud and Bryce Young going right there. And I made it clear last week, I don't think Anthony Richardson is worth trading up to number 3 to get. Now, I will reiterate, if Carolina or Houston does something stupid and one of them takes Richardson, and that means either Stroud or Bryce Young is still there at 3, you got to go. You got to try to get up there and get them. But I don't think that's going to happen. The Titans did meet with Will Levis, the former quarterback at Kentucky. And that's got people asking, are the Titans going to try to trade up to get Will Levis? I think that would be a disaster. I think that would be a terrible mistake. I don't see one thing that excites me about Levis. This just has... No. I do not want the Titans to trade up to get Will Levis, and if he were to happen to still be there at number 11, I don't want them to take him there either. I don't want Will Levis. I don't want Anthony Richardson. I'll tell you what, if the Titans can't get C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, which I think both of those are out of the equation now, what I'd rather do, I would almost rather wait and see if Hendon Hooker from Tennessee is still available in round 2 and try to draft him. That guy was a Heisman frontrunner before he got hurt. He was a Heisman frontrunner. I don't know why we ain't talking about him more. I know he's coming off of a big injury. I know that. And I know Titans fans, especially after Caleb Farley and all these guys that the Titans always draft that are coming off of major injuries and, if he can get healthy, blah, blah, blah. That's what happened with Jeff Simmons, too. But, I mean, Hendon Hooker, this guy was, if not for that injury, we'd be talking about him right alongside those other guys, I think. I'd be more interested in getting him than I would be Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. And some people call me crazy for that. I don't get the Richardson thing. I sure don't get the Levis thing. And if I'd rather take a chance on Hendon Hooker than either one of those. That's a good segue into the quarterback conversation. There's really nothing new to talk about. The Lamar Jackson thing remains, nothing new. Rumors out every day that he's really wanting to get out of Baltimore. I don't know. I don't know the other teams that have been. The Colts are another team that have been mentioned in terms of wanting Lamar Jackson. Wouldn't that be awful? All y'all Titans fans who say you don't want Lamar Jackson in Nashville, okay, what are you going to do if he goes to Indianapolis? And we got to deal with Trevor Lawrence, probably C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, and Lamar Jackson. Have fun with that. But honestly, we're running out of options here at quarterback. We're running out of options. I mean, even if you trade, if you were able to get a guy like Hendon Hooker in that scenario I was talking about, he ain't going to be. I mean, you ain't going to want him to come in and start right away. So it's just like, I mean, I said it last week. Even the crazy idea of Josh Dobbs taking the job. Well, he's in Cleveland now as a backup to Deshaun Watson. So even that's off the table. We are rapidly running out of options at quarterback. Tannehill, Malik, I don't know. The long shot of Lamar. Maybe if you made a trade for a guy like Matthew Stafford, which I reiterated last week, I'm not crazy about doing that. It's just we're rapidly running out of options. Rapidly running out of options. So there you go. I don't know. If you ask me what I would like for them to do, I still would like for them to try everything in their power to get Lamar Jackson. But the problem is, if you give Baltimore your first round pick, we're really screwed when it comes to wide receivers then. Because now we can, I mean, you can bring Lamar in and that's great, but we have nobody at wide receiver. And we need to draft somebody, but you're going to give Baltimore your number 11 pick. So it's just a mess all around. Oh, yeah. Have I mentioned we still got to re-sign Jeff Simmons? Have I mentioned we still got to work out whatever this thing is with Kevin Byard, which Rand Carthon said yesterday that was a bunch of baloney. He said Kevin Byard doesn't want to go anywhere. Kevin Byard has not asked for a release, nor do they want to release him. So he kind of just nipped that in the bud right there. He could be lying. I mean, he could be lying. As a matter of fact, I'm sure Vrabel would prefer him to lie. But there you go. That's kind of where things stand right now. I mean, there's not really much new to talk about. The draft is a month away. As things stand right now, I think we need to go wide receiver. I still think the Titans may very well go offensive line, but man, looking at this wide receiver room right now, it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. Having to hope against hope that a young guy catches on, man. I would rather get some kind of veteran presence from the free agency or trade. Would love to know you guys' thoughts on Hopkins. What do you think? Do you think the Titans should go after Hopkins? Do you think that's a good thing to do? I think it only is if you can get some amazing trade value where you don't have to give them very much. Because a high-round draft pick, I wouldn't want to give that up for Hopkins. So I think we need to go wide receiver at 11, but I also think we still need to go get a free agent. We need to go get a free agent wide receiver. I know the class was not great to start with and is definitely not great now. But, I mean, every passing day, when I think about the wide receiver room, I just think about that gif of the desert with just the nothingness everywhere. That's the Titans wide receiver room right now. We need some help. We got to change that. Let me stress this to you again. If Derrick Henry is indeed back with the Titans this season, which I believe he will be, nothing's for sure, but I believe he will be. Even if he's there, as great as that is, we got to change some of the identity of this team. We cannot live and die by Derrick Henry anymore. This is 2023. I'm not saying that he shouldn't get his carries. I'm not saying he can't still be that dude. But we cannot keep centering everything around this guy. Number one, he ain't getting any younger. His legs ain't getting any less tired. Well, I don't know. He's a freak. But, still, we got to be able to throw it, is what I'm trying to say. We've got to be able to throw it. And Vrabel's talking about we need more speed. Well, they haven't done anything to get more speed on offense. We're also in a situation at tight end where Austin Hooper is out of there now, which is fine. I mean, he did some good stuff, but he's gone, so now we need another tight end. We need a tight end who can block. So there's another thing. Are we going to draft a tight end in a late round, and that guy's going to have to come in and start? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like we're in a very stable place. Like, we've got the defense pretty much set. We just need some guys in there for depth. But this offense, man, even though we've gotten pieces in place on the offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, even in terms of like a backup running back, I mean, this is a crap show right now. I mean, what are we doing? We got to do something other than... I don't think you can rely on just the draft. I don't think you can rely on just a team full of rookies to come in. I mean, you've got to... I don't know. Luke on the YouTube chat asked if I heard about the school shooting in Nashville. No, I didn't. An active shooter event has taken place at Covenant School, Covenant Presbyterian Church on Burton Hills Drive. The shooter was engaged by the police and is dead. Oh my gosh. Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital has confirmed 3 children were transported here from Covenant School with gunshot wounds and later died from their injuries. 4 dead. Children among them. Children taken to Vanderbilt. Wow. I'm just finding out about that right here live on this podcast. And I'll tell you. Whew. Well, that is... that kind of makes you feel silly for sitting here and ranting about a football team, you know. And I think, God, I mean, you use things like football as an escape from how crappy the world is. But sometimes you just can't get away from it. You just can't get away. Man, that's terrible. Well, my love to everybody involved with that. That is as horrible a news as you'll hear. Especially, my God, kids. What is wrong with people, man? What is wrong? How deranged do you have to be? Sending my love to everybody affected there. I love Nashville. And that is just horrendous. Well, I don't really know where to go from there. I was going to do a segment ranking my top 10 Titans games, and that just feels ridiculous to do right now. After finding that out, how do you pivot and go to something else when you just found out about that? You know, obviously we need to be praying for the people in Nashville and sending our love there. Terrible, terrible tragedy. And Luke, I appreciate you letting me know about that. I didn't know. I've been doing this for the last half hour. Haven't been really checking anything going on in the world. But that's awful news. Awful news. And everybody be sending your love to Nashville. It's terrible when this stuff happens, but especially kids. Again, what is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? Thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to save the top 10 games thing for next time because I don't really know where to go from that other than just maybe crawling into bed and just staying there for the rest of the day. Thank you guys for joining me on the Two Tone Talk podcast. I appreciate you guys more than you know, and I hope everybody stays safe, spreads love out there this week. I appreciate you. This is Two Tone Talk podcast. Staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. Thank you for joining me, and have a good day.